We're waiting to be joined by Councillors Vincent and Fuller. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Right.
Do we have any declarations of interest? Here's John. Any declarations of interest, anybody? No? Okay. Minutes held on the 2nd of December, seems like a long time ago, 2021. Are we happy to sign those off as a true record of that meeting? Yeah, thumbs up, excellent. So we move speedily on to item 4, which is our project showcase item. Just to remind ourselves about our collective endeavours to putting important investment into the greater Norwich area, and we're delighted to welcome someone who's known, I think, to all of us, Jerry Wigan, who's going to talk to us about the Green Pedalway Junction and the Barn Road Gateway. And so Jerry is the Transforming Cities Manager. Over to you.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm on a bit of a dodgy connection here. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Just for clarification, I think the agenda item refers to Green Pedalway and the Marriott's Way. That they are in fact two different schemes, but I'm here just to talk to you about the Marriott's Way Barn Road scheme. So the Green Pedalway is one of the pedalways that runs through the city, and we did work on there. But I'm here just to really go through the Barn Road project, if that is okay with everyone. So I've just got a presentation to go through. Happy to make this available afterwards. So let me just try and share my screen if I'm able to. Let me just see where we are. Right. Show all windows. I'll just try and bring this up. Share. Can everybody see that on the screen? Yeah, somebody just nod or not.
It's on there.
Yeah, okay. So so the background to the project was that this was part of a program of projects being developed through the Marriott's Way implementation and delivery plan. This particular site, which is at the southern end of the Marriott's Way, was identified during consultation as a significant problem and was consequently of high priority within the plan. The main factors were that the entrance to this strategic cycle and pedestrian route was largely concealed by overgrown planting. We had some poor street furniture and generally a lack of legibility. So it wasn't very clear as to where you were and where you were going. So a programme of works at the Barn Road entry to what's called Trail Wood was funded through the Community Infrastructure Levy and was conducted in conjunction with the County Council's Marriott's Way Heritage Trial Project. So it was very much a, trail project, not trial. It's very much a combined effort. The Marriott's Way was recently listed in the Times as one of the best and easiest cycle routes in the UK. So we're very fortunate to have such an important piece of infrastructure on our doorstep. So the overall budget wasn't huge for this one. It was around about £50,000, which was funded largely through the Community Infrastructure Levy with a small top up from the Heritage Lottery Fund. So really the objectives that we had were listed on the screen. So largely around improving visibility and legibility to the entrance of the Marriott's Way. It's all about opening up this entrance. You'll see on a couple of photographs, it was largely hidden, and that was leading to sort of antisocial behaviour and sort of security concerns for those who wanted to use it. We wanted to coordinate with and include improvements with the Marriott's Way Heritage Trail Project, as already mentioned, which is new fencing and a historic gate as the gateway feature. Improve the quality of the streetscape, improve pedestrian and cycle access through new cycle and pedestrian paths. And one thing that we wanted to do was widen the access to allow for emergency and maintenance vehicles, which wasn't possible beforehand. Certainly wanted to review existing signage and particularly remove clutter. There's an awful lot of clutter that you can accumulate on routes such as this. So this was all about sort of removing that as much as possible. Provide ecological mitigation and enhancement to works that we did. Provide opportunities for volunteering. We have lots of people who volunteer on the trail network, and we wanted to sort of make sure that we could continue with that and provide some new cycle stands. So largely self-explanatory in terms of what the project objectives were. So as I said, it was focused at the bottom of the Marriott's Way. Just to familiarise yourself, the roundabout at the bottom, if you like, is where Halfords is. If people can orientate themselves, if you've come down sort of Grapes Hill and you carry on, it's that area of the city. So we've got lots of work that went on around there, around the surfacing and signage and a lot of the management works in that area. So just a few photos, really. You can see that, I mean, these photos, the one on the bottom left was obviously taken in the winter time when there aren't the leaves aren't on the trees, if you like. So it gives it almost a false impression of being quite open. But when all of the trees are in full leaf, if you like, it's quite dark. It's quite intimidating, actually, as an entrance point. The photograph on the right shows that there was a lot of desire lines. People were taking all sorts of different routes through the area to get on and off the bottom of the Marriott's Way, but it was just creating these sort of informal paths which were of poor quality and weren't properly surfaced. Again, just some pictures to show some areas were becoming quite muddy at the bottom there, and it had suffered from sort of graffiti and some antisocial behaviour, and just needed a really good sort of tidy up and get it back to where we want it to be. So these works were done over a period of time. They were done by our contractor Tarmac. And you can see straight away the sort of after photos show, you know, an area which is clean, it's tidy, it's very welcoming. This is the sort of heritage gate that was part of the old railway setup, and you can see that we've got new signage up, which sort of orientates people and gives them reassurance that they are actually on the Marriott's Way and where to go once they get to the bottom. This is a picture that's taken from Street View, which just simply shows how the whole area has been opened up. These informal routes that people were using, as you can see, are now sort of properly tarmacked and have got a good surface on there. And it's just generally a welcoming gateway into the city, or if you're leaving the city, to go out on the Marriott's Way and then obviously explore out in a different way. In terms of the sorts of outputs, just to show that we achieved what we set out to. We wanted to, as I say, improve visibility and legibility. That has certainly happened with the removal of a number of trees and shrubs, and made the area a lot more welcoming and safe for everyone. We wanted to coordinate works with the Heritage Trail project, and that has been achieved through the collaborative working. And we had the installation of fencing and that heritage gate. Improve the quality of the streetscape. Yes, I think you can see from the photographs and the feedback from users that has been achieved. Improve the pedestrian cycle access. Again, that's been achieved, as you can see, through the new links as well as the cycle racks. You can see those in the photo just on the right there. Review the existing signage and reduce clutter. Again, that has been achieved, and any new signage that went up has obviously incorporated new information to make it more user-friendly. We did replacement tree planting, so any trees that were taken out, we did replace to make sure that everything was done correctly, and we put species back in that were more suited to the environment. And again, in terms of opportunities for volunteering, we have a large number of volunteers involved, particularly those who are interested in the historic railway nature of the route. And that's being continued. And as I said, the fact that the route was just recently given the status as one of the best cycle and walking routes in the whole of the UK, I think is testament to the delivery of schemes like this. And I think it's a route that we should be very proud of. So that was just a very quick sort of canter through, just to give you a very good feel for the types of projects that ultimately go through the SIL funding route, and the outputs that we can generate. So I hope you'll all agree this was a successful project for everyone to be involved with. So happy to take any questions if there are any, but I'll stop sharing at that point.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, very good presentation, and actually a bit of strategic investment can be absolutely transformative. Really good.
Yeah,
any comments or questions?
No, it's
Okay.
absolutely fine.
Well, only that I'm not quite sure it being the easiest cycle path is probably necessarily a benefit. Sometimes a bit of challenging, but yeah, it's a good project. I mean, I drive past there quite a lot at the entrance anyway, and it's certainly tidied it up a lot. And there's going to be a lot more housing development in the next local plan in that northwest quadrant. So we've got some really solid options there. So although it's hidden away from the motorist, you don't always have to drive the car. I'll get on my bicycle every now and again, as you all know.
Excellent.
Okay, a little piece of autobiography as well, John. Thank you. Yeah, very, very good, uplifting and positive start to our meeting this afternoon. Thank you so much for your time, and
That's no problem.
our thanks to everybody involved in a successful delivery of the project.
Brilliant. Thank you. I'll pass that on.
Thanks. Okay, let's move on then to item 5, which is the Greater Norwich Annual Growth Programme 22-23 now. This will be familiar, I think, to everybody, and it's gone through the cabinet processes of individual members of the partnership. Phil, points you would like to make?
No, to be honest, Chair, as you've already said, people have seen it. You've seen it at least twice before today as well. I think for expediency, unless there's any particular points people want to draw out, I don't need to add anything.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. John.
The only thing I will add is, and partly as a result of the Wherryman's Way pot being 445, certainly in South Norfolk, we intend to add to that with some local footpaths that are centred around the new, so we're adding value to it, if you will, and for the Queen's Jubilee. So we've got a good, solid legacy project that takes the Wherryman's Way and then pushes it further with local investment, bridge replacements and other things like that, centred around Loddon, our Jubilee town.
Okay, John, good to share. Thank you very much. Any other points from anybody? So we've pushed the programme through. That's great. Thanks for all the work, Phil, and everybody involved in putting that together. Very good. Very well received at Norwich City Council Cabinet. I'm sure very well received in other cabinet meetings as well. Great. So let's move on. We have a supplementary agenda, which is East Norwich Masterplan oral update. There are some papers with this and diagrams, illustrative materials. So I'm going to pass over to Graham.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, members will recall this, that effectively all members of the Greater Norwich Growth Board are themselves already involved in a sort of significant partnership promoting East Norwich. I thought it was timely just to give you a quick overview of where we are in the process, because I'm sure over the next year we'll need to get involved in far more updated debates, but I know it cuts across essentially all of our administrative areas as separate councils, and there's a wide partnership, but it's just with particularly the leaders here, it was a chance to just update you very quickly on where we are with it, because it's of common interest. And essentially I gave a commitment to keep you updated the last time I told you about it when we kicked off the master plan process. So I thought it was a timely process to do it. I am going to see if I can share my screen, which hopefully, if I do that, I always get the confusion over that. Is that working? Okay, I can see Alan's thumbs up, so I will plough on. Yes, so we brought effectively a firm of consultants in. They started work in April, effectively team of multidisciplinary consultants led by Avison Young, but supported very heavily by Allies and Morrison on the design side of it, and effectively funded and led the process being overseen by a public-private partnership, for which, so all the relevant public bodies are strongly supportive, but actually we've also gone through a process of getting in augmenting external funding via the Towns deal process to allow it to move forward and gain momentum, but also have got private sector funding from each of the substantial landowners. So actually there's only there's only a relatively limited number of landowners across the extent of East Norwich, and all of them are actively involved and contributing to the work on the master plan. So so it's been moving forward swiftly. The highlight to date has been the partners' acceptance of the stage 1 master plan that came forward in November. We are now trying to move forward into the stage 2 of the process. If I can move the slide on, that will just sort of explain roughly where we are. Over the summer of last year, the consultants did a lot of engagement, both formally and informally, with various stakeholders and community, essentially doing a lot of listening and learning. In terms of the autumn, they moved into formulation of the master plan. Effectively was itself then subject to further informal engagement. They produced the draft master plan, and they've sought feedback from each of the detailed stakeholders before coming through with the concept and preferred option plan that was taken through our cabinet in November. We're now moving in and are some way through the process of effectively preparing the stage 2 master plan, and that becoming a draft supplementary planning document. And this is where it gets interlinked with the work that we're doing on the Greater Norwich local plan. As you'll be all aware, that's currently undergoing examination, and there's a policy that that was submitted in the local plan that seeks to, badge this as effectively one of the most strategic, significant regeneration proposals actually nationally. It's certainly on that scale, delivering up to 4,000 homes the policy talks about, and potentially up to 6,000 jobs. Some of those figures are being refined, and because we were to a certain extent playing catch up with the local plan and the timing of this, following the announcement of the closure of the Britvic Unilever plant on the site, the things have never fallen into line perfectly in terms of the sequencing of them, but it's coming together pretty well. We were under some pressure in terms of the examination section to demonstrate how the allocation that's proposed in the plan is going to be deliverable, and yet we're not quite there, because that's what the master plan and the delivery mechanisms are doing. We will get there in the coming months, and it's going to involve some degree of change of the submitted policies to reflect what's coming out in the emerging master plan, which I will update you on in a moment. But just to stress where we are, it's still a very live process. Consultants are doing a lot of work, continuing to engage to refine the emerging document. Over the past week, they've been meeting with education colleagues, bus operators, and we had a particularly helpful meeting with the Broads authorities to start talking about navigation issues, marinas and bridges, etc. And we're also doing a lot more detailed work on flood modelling and feasibility studies, particularly around the railway tunnels. So it's live, it's not a done deal, but it's kicking forward. In terms of where we're heading, the things that are going to come out over the next couple of months, effectively to become into the public domain, certainly for when our cabinet considers the next version of the emerging master plan in June. There's work going on an infrastructure delivery plan, first draft of which has been circulated around partners, a draft supplementary planning document that will then be subject to yet further consultation over the summer, and also considerable work on viability, and then the detailed technical work around flood modelling and the feasibility study regarding the underpass connecting the Deal ground to the Carrow works. So awful lot of work going to come on stream shortly, and will form part of the evidence base to support the emerging Greater Norwich local plan. Moving swiftly on, this is where we'd landed it in terms of November last year and the initial stage 1 work that the consultants did. As you'll see, they'd done an awful lot of work about scale, massing, heritage constraints, and also where absorption rates landed. So this was informed by some quite detailed work about where the local market was, mixture of houses and flats, etc. And the 4,000 homes initial figure that had been featured in the local plan had been revised down to 3,470 across the wider area. The point I need to stress here is that to produce the credible and reliable sort of master plan, you need to go into some quite considerable detail about the heritage assets, some of the flood constraints, and then come up with nominal development. It isn't this detailed in terms of how it's going to be taken forward, so the precise designs you're seeing on the screen don't dictate the form and necessarily lead the development process, the management process. So whilst there is a precise figure on the right hand side of the screen, it will vary both over time and through the operation of the development management process when it comes forward. This slide is just updating on where you are, because as we're going through that further engagement, updates on heritage listings, etc. Those figures are constantly being refined and through contact with the landowners especially, and you will see that that's enabled some change between the first and what is now the emerging second draft version. Number of homes and number of jobs slightly creeping up, balance of land use is changing, and areas for development are changing again still. The next slide I've got highlights the key areas of change between the first and second draft. They fall into 4 particular categories, which are access, so critically further engagement with the Highways Authority, stressing the importance of improving the connectivity through to King Street, and engagement with Network Rail means that that area to the east of the Carrow Works site needs to be preserved for access for the railway issues. We've got quite a lot of change came about through a wide scale additional listing exercise that we funded with Historic England, because the heritage assets hadn't been comprehensively reviewed on the site, and there is a massive legacy that creates some degree of constraint on the development, but B, actually give it a far greater opportunity in terms of the scale of the environment that you're building into, because many of the heritage assets on there create this real sense of place, will add value, and many of them are also readily convertible to a variety of uses. There has been some sort of lesser degree of land use change, but that's been particularly associated with the balance between residential and employment, and how we may use some employment uses on the site to potentially buffer against some of the neighbouring uses that might not be particularly good neighbours, noticeably the Ashfelt and Railhead site. So further discussions have been going on that. So it's led to some tweaking. And the final thing is there's been a change to the boundary of the wildlife site on the deal ground, which has been reflected in the emerging plan. So a lot of things going on in a lot of different directions have led to a variety of generally quite small scale changes to the emerging framework. This then informs the draft supplementary planning document. I won't bore you by taking you through the structure and how this document is going to be taken forward, but there's a draft available of it that's been shared around the partner group. It'll be expected to come into the public domain formally over the summer, but its adoption will only be able to take place after the policies that it supplements, that the ones in the Greater Norwich local plan, are adopted. So that's going to be sometime, hopefully in 2023. Moving on to the key bit, and where I'm sure the common interests of the Growth Board are around the infrastructure, because not only to unlock these developments, there's a clearly some quite significant infrastructure would be needed to be delivered in order to enable the development to take place anyway. What the master plan does is it paints a vision of a real quality, dense, urban and sustainable environment, which actually would benefit wider connectivity around the city, essentially. So basically it pulls the Broads far closer into the heart of the city effectively than it is currently, and it stitches together the urban fabric of Norwich in a better way than it exists at the moment. And the level of infrastructure that requires is more than technically is needed just simply to unlock the development sites that are there, and delivers a wide scale benefit to frankly Norwich as a whole, as a place. So there's quite a number of key bits of infrastructure. They're highlighted on the screen. I've not really got the time to run through all 15, but you will see there are 2 additional bridges proposed over the River Wensum. Both this one just connecting near to the football ground, and one to the east of the Trowse Rail Bridge. I ought to mention lands to potentially enable the twin tracking of the Trowse Rail Bridge will be safeguarded as part of the exercise. Further bridges to connect over the River Yare into the Deal Ground, and to allow improved connections to Whitlingham. And at the heart of it, there is this existing tunnel under the railway, which detailed feasibility work is going on to demonstrate how that will be opened up and enabled for use of the public. That sort of analysis and infrastructure ask, with its marina, etc., informs the infrastructure delivery plan that's been identified, that lists out that, and with all the other infrastructure that would be required to support a development of this scale anyway, in terms of primary schools, community hubs, health facilities, open space, etc. And then plays into the final piece of the jigsaw, which is a delivery strategy. That is where we are taking this forward. Now we've got all this information on the infrastructure requirements, its feasibility, deliverability, and ultimately the viability of the development it unlocks. There is clearly a gap going to be that exists in terms of this emerging work, because both in terms of the phasing and the total cost of the infrastructure to deliver this quality place, there will be a need for some form of public sector intervention. This is where we're heading with the development, with the evidence, to try and build that case to maximise the level of funding into this, and work out the mechanism for how that is going to be applied to not only accelerate the rate of delivery, but also to be compliant with the regime for subsidy control, and ensure there's an equitable split of any benefit between the landowners, and they're not exploiting the public sector, but also that there's sufficient incentive within the process for them to allow their land to be brought forward so it all works. That's crucially where the debates are heading with Homes England, who have been massively supportive of the process that we are going through to date, and are, at the moment we're having certain discussions about, how to structure those bids, where to point them, and how to shape up that evidence, because they think that in terms of the government announcements through the Levelling Up white paper, this is now very well placed placed to be driven forward and timely in terms of getting investment or a package together which will actually support the allocation in the local plan and enable it to be moved forward for delivery. So there is an awful lot of, if you pardon the pun, water yet to flow under the bridges that have yet to be built to get us there. But I suggest we need to engage with the Greater Norwich Growth Board, because in terms of your own infrastructure investment plans, this is going to be a significant, indeed game-changing development for the wider Greater Norwich area. And those are the discussions that we need to go through as we've now moving beyond the proof of the concept into actually working out how the mechanisms around a delivery are going to work. So that was a very, very quick canter through this. I am happy to take any questions anybody has, but I am also happy to recognise that this was a very brief and quick canter through a very complex issue. And if any of you, either individually or collectively with your organisations, would like further engagement with the Masterplan team or with myself to understand it, just please shout, and we're happy to arrange it, because certainly the last session that I think we had with the Broads Authority was very helpful in taking it forward. So I'm happy to extend that offer if you would like me or any of the Masterplan team to come to talk to your organisations separately. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Graham. I mean, that seems a very sensible and useful way in moving things through in more detail. So are there any particular points anybody wants to make at this stage from the presentation we've just had? John.
Yeah, I'm conscious this is a public meeting, so I'm not asking anybody to trespass on any confidential information. But I think it's notable that Lawrence Scott's site, which is right at the heart of the Northern Bank, isn't mentioned at all, either in the paperwork, and it's sort of pretty obvious on the map. The football ground is an integral part of it. Is it because this is a once in a multi-generation opportunity to do this properly? Is it because we just haven't been able to reach out to Woolong, as they are now called, or is it why doesn't this appear to be an integral part? Because it does clearly link, just by looking at the map, the houses on Geoffrey Watling Way. There's some other ones, looks like on the other side, and to the Carrow Road, and to the railway station, a short way rather than going around the long way. So I don't know, why is that?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of answers to that question. Firstly, Woolong, Lawrence Scott have been engaged in this process. There's a wider stakeholder group. They've periodically met most members of my staff and the Masterplan team. They're engaged, they're aware of it. Technically, there is a small area of their site that is included within the Masterplan process, which is the bit that runs along the front of their site, which will effectively provide the connectivity between the utilities site and effectively the land near the football club. There's already an access agreement that provides for the continuation of the Riverside Walk, and it's
fair enough. I mean, the end of the day, it just seemed like an omission, and it sounds like it's an accidental omission rather than intentional.
In a way, it's an intentional omission, and because it's, as I say, the access piece has been sorted, the engagement is going on, but at the end of the day, Woolong, Lawrence Scott are a very successful manufacturing company who are further investing in their site and are very locationally specific in terms of their energy supply requirements for what they do. So it's not a simple matter of being able to shift that to open up further development potential for the site. The Masterplan is working around that because they're a valued local company who effectively need to be retained in situ at the site, and we can perfectly well work around that development.
That's reassuring. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the question, John. Thanks for the answer, Graham. Any other points from anybody?
Alan, I just wonder if I can just take Graham up on his offer I'd like to know more about this out of interest and proximity. So I do wonder, perhaps, Graham, if you, me and Phil can arrange a presentation to our senior officer staff and open to members as may be interested.
Certainly happy to do that.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. It's a big, as John says, multi-generational scheme, so important for everybody to understand its potential, but also, you know, add value to the discussions moving forward. Okay. Anybody else want to raise any points? In which case, can I thank Graham for the presentation? Very helpful to have some illustrative sort of elements in that presentation, and obviously something we're going to come back to on a frequent basis. Right, so that ends the formal public meeting. So we'll be meeting informally, so people can just stay online until